to 70 and they have to remit the dollar at that value, they will be remitting less in foreign exchange. That is their prime concern. For example, let us say they brought the money when the dollar was 60. We assured them a 10% return. So on 60 rupees investment, they will get 66. But if the dollar moves to 70, they will not be remitting even a $1 which they have brought. That is their concern, and that's why lot of funds are flowing to the West as well as to Europe. Now, let me come back to exports again. When a country or a company look at exports, they have a different version of exports. From company's perspective, what could be which prompt a company to exports? Anyone else? Because I just want to make it a dialogue rather than a monologue. Why a company should enter into exports? Anyone? Any serious guess? You are in domestic business. Why should you should enter into exports? Yes, sir.
Like the current scenario has been depreciating. If I export, then I will get more.
Wonderful. That's one idea. You are increasing your profitability. You are getting better return on your investment. Fine. Anyone else? Why company should exports? One is that you broaden your market base for exports of goods and services. If you are exporting internally only with a country like India, you are only catering to 1/7 of the world population. 6/7 of the world population is outside India. Once you export, you can cater to those persons also. So basically you broaden your market base. Second thing, here as rightly said, you get a better price for products and services. Your profitability can increase. Thirdly, you are reducing your risk which may happen because of market fluctuation. You are exporting t-shirt, there is weather change and the t-shirt may not be in demand. So if you are only concentrated in a particular market, you may be subjected to these kinds of fluctuation. You also diminish your cost by adopting mass production. If you are looking into exports, you are not confined to produce for the domestic market. So you produce in bulk, which reduces your cost of production also. And finally, it adds to your turnover significantly. That is for company. Now, why the government should promote exports? The most important is that if you have to pay for imports, you require dollar. So that is the fundamental thing for which exports, imports happen. If you have to import, you have to export. If you have to export, then for that you may require certain inputs, you have to import. Secondly, that is also required because if you have to support industrialization, if you have to look at your infrastructure problem, you require ship, you require power plants. So all that has to be paid in foreign exchange, and unless you have foreign exchange, you cannot pay for them. Thirdly, exports are very important tool of employment generation also. 5 years back, RIS has carried out a study which established that, of course that depends from sector to sector, that every $1 billion of exports creates 5 lakhs jobs in the country. That's the study, but it's not. I'm not agreeing with that. That's the thumb rule which they have given. It depends from sector to sector. There is primarily confined to traditional sectors of exports where this is possible, but about the high technology sector, it may not create that many jobs. But the bottom line is that it creates additional job. It has a spin-off effect on economy because when things are being produced, government gets different kinds of taxes out of it, and which gives a spin-off effect on the economy. And finally, it helps in managing current account deficit. One should always keep in mind that the only way to manage the current account deficit on a sustainable basis is to manage through exports. If you want to manage your current account deficit through exports, most of the countries are doing it. You can supplement it through FDI, and if you are balancing your current account deficit through FDI as well as exports, then your currency can never be volatile. The currency will always move in a broad range. We are not a votary of an official rate of exchange. Even exporters want stability in the currency. People may think that Indian exporters have got huge benefit when the dollar moved from 58 to 68. This is not the case, because when the dollar is moving in this direction, even exporter is confused. He thinks that tomorrow it may be 70, why I should finalize the order today? It creates uncertainty. That's why for business, we want stability in the currency. We want dollar to move within a band. If there is a variation of plus minus 5% on a yearly basis, this is understandable. This is a kind of risk which exporter importer will always take. But if a currency varies 5% in 2 days time, nobody can factor that in the prices, and that's the crisis which has been generated in the past. Now let me just give you a broad look what we are exporting and how the profile has changed over a period of time. If you look at India's exports roughly 10 years back, it was thoroughly dominated by traditional sectors of exports like textile, gems and jewelry, handicraft, leather, marine products, agro products. But now, with engineering sector as well as petroleum sector dominating the scene, we have seen a wide change, and this is not something which is constant, it is keep on changing. And now we are seeing a little lower role of plantation. When I say plantation, it means tea, coffee, rubber, all which is grown on plants. Our plantation exports now contribute to only 0.5%. Agriculture and allied products have gone up to 10.6% because now we have become world number one in rice exports. We have beaten Thailand recently. India is sitting on a huge stock of wheat. If the government of India allows wheat, we can easily increase the $32 billion to $50 billion. Right now, talks are going on for supply of wheat to Australia, of course, which is a major exporter, as well as to US. We are also talking to Iran for supply of wheat from India. We have carved out a rupee payment mechanism with Iran, which will help in pushing these exports. Marine products, I think marine products is by and large within the same range, 1.1% earlier also, now also 1.1. Ores and mineral, the export has dropped significantly because the Supreme Court has put a lot of restriction on mining. Secondly, with a view to conserve the raw material for steel industry, government has also put levy on export of iron ore. So if you want to export iron ore, you have to pay 30% duty. So there is a conscious policy by the government to reduce exports of mines and mineral products. Leather, this year we have grown only by 1.6%, but this is a sector where India enjoys the competitive edge now. Why? 35% of leather sector market has been taken by China. Things are moving in China in a different way. China is losing its competitive edge. First of all, compare few of the parameters. China all along has pursued single child norms. Today they are in a situation where their working population is going down. Now once the working population goes down, they would like to move to value segments of exports. They are saying, why not we export power equipment? Why not we export electronic equipment? Why to waste our labor in these kinds of jobs? That is one factor. Secondly, if rupee has depreciated by 25%, the rest of the Southeast have also depreciated by 7 to 8% in last 12 months time. Chinese currencies have appreciated by around 3 to 5%. So these countries have roughly 15% advantage vis-a-vis China for exports across the products. Thirdly, China has now decided that they will propel their GDP through domestic procurement, and for that they want to increase the wages. China has decided that the minimum wage increase on year basis will be 13%. So every year the wages has to increase by 13%. China also has a huge pollution problem at its end, and therefore Factories which were close to seaports or airports, they are moving to hinterland, which in turn increase your transportation cost. Finally, lot of the social compliance cost of labor were earlier being borne by the government, that now that has been passed on to the industry. All these factors put together now gives ample opportunity for India to look into the traditional sectors of exports, which China was having a kind of monopoly so far. Just to give you an example, the trend has already started. Last year, China started exporting cotton to India and in turn taking cotton yarn, because China is closing down the spinning mills. A spinning mill involves lot of labor. They are short of labor, they are closing down the spinning mill. They have already banned manufacturing of hand knotted carpets. That's another field which can be available to India. But point is that we are not the only player who can occupy the market vacated by China. There are countries like Vietnam, there are countries like Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all are sitting on the fence to occupy that space. Either we move fast and we move in a proactive manner, I think the investment and the market will be occupied, I personally feel, by Vietnam and Cambodia. If you look at Vietnam export figure for 2012, in many of the commodities you will see there is $15 billion growth in 1 year. How it has happened? Because Chinese investments are going to those countries. They know that in those countries we can get cheap labor, and that's why the whole investment is flowing. We have the opportunity to attract investment in our country. But if you are ranked at 133rd position in the Doing Business report of the world, I personally feel that we should not expect the investment to come in. All that is required, that you have to go an extra mile and attract the investment. I will just deviate for 1 minute. I was talking to Wharton School, one of the very senior person, and they were telling me how they had decided to set up the ISB in Hyderabad. He said that initially the plan was to set up the ISB in Chennai. They fixed an appointment with the chief minister. When they were about to arrive, the appointment was cancelled. Then they decided they will move to Bangalore. They fixed an appointment with the chief minister. The minister delayed the meeting for 75 minutes and hardly given them 30 seconds time. The project could not take up. Finally they said that let us go to Hyderabad. When they arrived at the airport, chief minister received them and the deal was signed there. That kind of proactive approach we require in government if we want the investment to come in. Keep it in mind, the investor has option. It is not that he will come to India. Why he will come to India? He has no loyalty to India. He is not an Indian citizen who is looking for investment. He will look where he get the ease of doing business. If you provide that ease, definitely he will come. I know the best profitability they get in India. That is a plus factor, and that's why many of the company wait for 3 years to get your clearance. But point is that after all, you should not test their patience. They will run out of the patience if you are not deciding on things. Let me come back to here. We are one of the major player in gems and jewelry, where our exports are around $45 billion. But last year we have taken a new trend emerging. Hong Kong is taking a lead in gem and jewelry business. They have in fact given visas to lot of workers in Gujarat, and they have invited these workers to train their workers, and that is a trend where we have to be little careful. Sports goods are minor one. Chemical products, it includes pharmaceutical also. This is a product where we can pin great hope. India's present export of pharmaceutical is around $15 billion. We are the world leader in generics. We are the fourth largest exporter value wise and the largest exporter volume wise, because our bulk drugs are so cheap, though despite being the top in quantity, we are still fourth in the value, and this provides us massive opportunity. You will know that in US alone, pharmaceutical worth $35 billion will be off patented in 2030. If you are getting a huge market of $35 billion, and if you start by capturing 10% of the market, you can still get 3.5 to $4 billion in a particular market. This is a sector where I personally feel that in 2 years time we can take export from $15 billion to $25 billion. Unfortunately, threatened with India's prowess in pharmaceutical, there is a lot of non-tariff barriers which are imposed by countries. We have seen that a pharmaceutical which is consigned to Africa has been detained in EU. EU is not a beneficiary, EU is not going to utilize that. But in pharmaceutical, we have very strong multinationals who are operating, and they are not keen that Indian companies, not a very large size, even the SMEs who are giving threatening them, they should capture these markets. This is something where I think government of India has to chip in. Government of India has to provide them quick registration of pharmaceutical abroad, and this is a sector where I personally feel that we can take our exports easily to $25 billion in next 2 years. Engineering. If Indian exports have done well in last 10 years, I think primarily it is on account of engineering products. We have last year exported cars worth $15 billion. Hyundai, Maruti, Fords, they are the major player who are exporting cars from India. We are one of the leader in auto component. We were doing an analysis which are the sector where India has an edge over China. Auto components is definitely one such thing. Why? Because in automobile sector, the models of the car keep on changing every third month. Chinese are not able to adopt a prototype of those cars. So they take time. They can produce hundreds of components in one go, that's fine. But when it comes to developing a prototype or a sample, they take a lot of time. And there India has definitely an edge. The auto component exports have already touched $7 billion. But we feel that here we can easily double our exports in next 5 years. Electronics goods, we have started quite late. You must be aware that on the behest of the US and advanced country, we signed what is known as ITA 1, Information Technology Agreement 1. Information Technology Agreement 1 envisages that all the signatory countries will allow import of ITA 1 product in the country at zero duty. What is the implication? If you are allowing import of a particular product at zero duty, domestic manufacturing cannot be competitive. Because when the domestic manufacturing is producing certain things, they have a duty on their raw materials as well as the finished product. Why we impose customs duty? The customs duty is imposed so that you protect the domestic industry. When you sign an ITA item where you have removed the protection by way of customs duty, you have allowed zero duty imports into the country. You have created an inverted duty structure which will not support domestic manufacturing in ITA. That's why in number of the ITA 1 products, we have lost the bus. The good news is that India has not agreed to sign ITA 2, which could have covered your AC, television, video cameras and other things. We have not agreed to sign ITA 1. We have recently come with an electronic hardware policy where the government is giving a push to electronic hardware. They are giving both fiscal and non-fiscal concession, even the income tax benefit on electronic goods. The surprising thing is that we are importing lot of electronic goods. As per official figure, the total import of electronic product itself is $31 billion. And mind it, many of the electronic products are not captured, because if you are bringing a car, it may have huge amount of electronic components, but since it is classified as a car, the electronic components are not captured. Prime Minister has constituted a committee which says that if India is not taking adequate precaution to augment electronic product by 2020, electronic itself, import itself will touch $400 billion. This is a threat in which we all are working. But the good news is that since we have come with a very vibrant electronic hardware policy, investment has started flowing into those industry. We are hopeful on that. Project goods, we have not been able to leverage whatever benefit we have. This is a sector which gives you massive opportunity in the Middle East, in Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, where projects are going. The advantage of project export is that here you are not only exporting goods, you are exporting services also. If you are executing a product in Iraq, you provide consultancy services, you provide designing services, you provide some equipment also. So both goods and services are promoted at the same time. Unfortunately, the situation right now in Middle East is a little precarious. We have restriction coming on Iran. We have a turmoil going on the Middle East. But I'm sure this is a sector which will provide you comfort in years to come. Textile. 10 years back, we were the world leader, but we have not fully integrated the textile chain, with the result, while we are surplus in natural fiber, be it cotton, wool, silk, we are short in man-made fiber. The world fashion is changing. Now they want a mix of man-made with natural fiber. It is not natural fiber so long, because maintaining a natural fiber cloth is very, very cumbersome. But we are having shortage of that. India has signed few free trade agreements with the countries where India may be getting the man-made fiber at zero duty through those routes. And if that happens, it will definitely add to the competitiveness of exports. Handicraft, the figure here is little misleading, because the figure talks about handicraft which is classified under a particular tariff line. Lot of handicraft, let us say a bag which is beautifully embroidered, it may be handwork, but it may be classified as a bag. Secondly, a furniture which is beautifully engraved may classify as furniture. So this figure is not rightly reflecting the handicraft exports, but the export is doing well in Africa. Carpet, we are the world fourth largest producer of carpets, but since with the global warm up, we are seeing that the demand for carpet is going down. We have to look at the use of man-made fiber also in carpet to keep our market. Petroleum right now is the biggest contributor to exports, thanks to refineries created by Reliance and Essar. But the bad news is that we have reached near the plateau. Now it won't be possible for us to increase our crude productivity so that we can increase exports, and that's why from henceforth we may see a drop in export of petroleum product. Value wise, if crude prices go up, you may see an increase in petroleum product, but when it comes to volume, from here onwards we will see a drop in volume of crude petroleum products. Now look at how diversification is happening. Diversification of export is not only happening at the product stage, even at the market stage we are seeing a diversification. Few years back, I'm talking about 2004, 2005, Europe was accounting to 25% of my exports. Its share has come down to 18.66%. US was accounting for 24% of the exports. Its share has come down to now 13.26. Latin America, which is now one of the emerging region for Indian exports, we have seen our exports doubling from 2.25% to 4.5% in last 6 to 7 years. Africa also, we have seen our export moving from 6% to 9.7%. In the government of India, we are putting lot of focus on Africa. Why? Because if you look at the trend, there is a transition happening across the globe. Manufacturing is moving from North America and Europe to Asia. Similarly, agriculture is moving from Asia to Africa. 10 years down the line, you will see that Africa become the largest producer of a wide range of agricultural products. Number of Indian entrepreneurs have already bought land in different parts of Africa. Secondly, if you look at the trend of the pricing, for most of the industrial products, the price has come down by 4% in last 10 years. I am talking about the UNIDO report. For most of the industrial products, the price has come down by around 4.5% in last 1 year. Agriculture is something where we are seeing around 15 to 20% growth on year basis. Keep it in mind, agriculture requires land, with land size declining and productivity going down. We will have a situation where agriculture price will always goes on year basis. If that happens, Africa will have huge purchasing power capacity at their end, and that's why we are putting a lot of hopes on Africa. India has already ventured into host of engineering products exports to Africa. In pharmaceutical, Africa is the biggest market for India. CIS, after the disintegration of the USSR, our exports are by and large in the range of less than $5 billion. CIS is important if India is looking at the energy security and wants to import crude from these regions, then CIS become important in our trade policy regime. Otherwise, we can give a little downplay to the CIS region. Look at Asia. Now Asia accounts for more than 50% of the export, 15.8. That shows that more than half of my export is happening in Asia only. This share was around 40% 10 years down the line. Why it is happening? Because we have signed numerous free trade agreement, comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Asian countries. We have ASEAN India FTA, we have India Japan CICA, we have India South Korea CICA, we have India Singapore CIPA, we have India Thailand CIPA, we have India Malaysia CIPA. All these have provided huge market to India. When India has given them the tariff preference on imports, India has also got tariff preference on their exports, which reduces your landed price of products and make you more competitive in those markets. We have seen that despite Indian exports down by around 1.75% last year, export to ASEAN has grown by around 11%. The biggest setback for India has been the Northeast Asia, and that too because our exports to China went down from $18 billion to $13 billion primarily because of the iron ore exports, and secondly because of the cotton export. China itself started exporting cotton from India, which has reduced the demand from India. Of course, India has moved to the value added segment and now we are exporting cotton yarn. But Northeast Asia is an area where we have to be little cautious. Southeast Asia has done well. With South Asian countries, we have huge